World leaders and human rights advocates are mourning the passing of former U.S. President Jimmy Carter. Carter died Sunday at his home in Plains, Georgia at age 100. Known for his relentless pursuit of peace and justice, Carter brokered the historic Camp David Accords between Israel and Egypt. He received the Nobel Peace Prize in 2002 for decades of humanitarian work. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres praised Carter as a lifelong humanitarian, highlighting his contributions to mediating conflict, promoting democracy, and eradicating disease. Carter's environmental foresight, advocacy for marginalized groups, and bold critique of Israel's treatment of Palestinians earned both admiration and controversy. Despite criticism during his presidency for economic challenges and the Iran hostage crisis, Carter's post-presidency legacy shines as a beacon of principle and compassion. James Zogby called him our greatest ex-president, embodying grace and unwavering commitment to human dignity. According to organizers, President Carter's state funeral at Washington National Cathedral will be held on January 9th, featuring a eulogy by President Joe Biden. Watch Muslim Network tribute to President Carter here.
If American presidents are to be judged on justice, President Jimmy Carter will shine like none before him or after. He cared more for principles than politics. Carter was a man of principles before he became president, during his presidency, and after he left the office. Here he is as governor of Georgia.
Time for racial discrimination was over in Georgia.
No poor, rural, weak, or black person should ever have to bear the additional burden of being deprived of the opportunity of an education, a job, or simple justice.
When Jimmy Carter took oath of his office as President of the United States, he stated in his inaugural speech that human rights would be his principle in foreign policy.
Human rights would be a foundation stone of our entire foreign policy.
Than to help shape a just and peaceful world that is truly humane.
Domestically, he appointed more diverse federal judges during his presidency than all presidents combined. 57 non-white and 41 women. On climate change, far before Al Gore became a champion for the cause, President Carter installed solar panels on the White House. And President Carter became the only president in American history to successfully persuade Israel, who returned occupied territory to Egypt through the Camp David Accord. Regarding the 2004 invasion of Iraq, Carter told the independent newspaper in the UK, "There was no reason for us to become involved in Iraq recently. That was a war based on lies and misinterpretations from London and from Washington." President Jimmy Carter was also brave. Indeed, brave. Bravery is perhaps not an attribute used for American presidents. Unfortunately, it does take bravery to talk about Palestine in America. He called his peacemaking work, quote, "waging peace." However, his book, Palestine, Peace, Not Apartheid, was nothing but a bombshell for Zionists in America. Published in November of 2006, Carter was ahead of his time using the term apartheid. Now, Israel's own human rights organization, B'Tselem, uses the term apartheid. So do Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch. These human rights organizations were, however, 17 years late. President Carter was the first. He called Israeli apartheid worse than South African apartheid. When Israel does occupy this territory deep within the West Bank and connects the 200 or so settlements with each other with a road, and then prohibits the Palestinians from using that road, or in many cases, even crossing the road, this perpetrates even worse instances of apartness or apartheid than we witnessed even in South Africa. Abraham Foxman, the national director of the Anti-Defamation League, accused Carter of engaging in anti-Semitism. Then, the anti-Semitism orchestra simply played on and on. 14 members of the Carter Center's Board of Counselors resigned. The likes of Alan Dershowitz, Dennis Ross, Kenneth Stein, and the Simon Wiesenthal Center went after him. As President Carter visited Brandeis University about his book, major donors told the institution they would no longer donate to the school. But President Carter stood his ground. Here is President Carter 3 years later in Gaza. Tragically, the international community too often ignores the cries for help, and the citizens of Palestine are treated more like animals than like human beings, he said. The starving of 1.5 million human beings of the necessities of life. Never before in history has a large community like this been savaged by bombs and missiles and then denied the means to repair itself, Carter said, at a UN school graduation ceremony in Gaza City. While he criticized Hamas using rockets, he stated, "I have to hold back tears when I see the deliberate destruction that has been racked against your people," he said at a destroyed American school, saying it was deliberately destroyed by bombs from F-16s made in my country. "I feel partly responsible for this, as must all Americans and Israelis," Carter said. In Gaza, he met Ismail Haniyeh. Yes, the same Ismail Haniyeh assassinated by Israel. He was the head of Hamas. President Carter asked America and Israel to talk to Hamas and stated Hamas is ready to recognize Israel. He never gave up hope for peace. In 2015, when the now late president said,
But I think the American superpower goal should be to be the champion of peace. We are the most warlike country on earth.
Carter also pointed out that the U.S. had been at peace for only 16 of its then 242 years as a nation. 4 of those years were on his watch. Carter was a truth-telling Christian teacher of a Sunday school. America needs more Christians like him. He was also the only American president to address a Muslim convention. It was President Jimmy Carter who took Imam Abdul Malik Mujahid's hand in his own hand while introducing him to his family and asked him to organize American Muslims against President Bush. He was a president not bought or paid for by anyone. He didn't just talk the talk, he walked the walk. Israeli occupation still exists. Apartheid exists. And genocide is happening daily right in front of our eyes. But President Carter did his best to tell Zionists and America that it is in their best interest to let Palestinians have equal rights and freedom.